At age 30, Jake and Marcus looked almost identical on paper. They both earned $75,000 a year. Both wanted financial freedom, and both believed that if they worked hard enough and invested consistently, retirement would eventually take care of itself. But one simple decision changed the direction of their futures. Jake chose his company's 401k, attracted by the promise of an employer match. Marcus ignored the match and focused instead on a Roth IRA. To most people, Jake looked smarter immediately. Every dollar he contributed reduced his taxable income. His company added free money, and his account balance began growing faster from day one. Marcus, on the other hand, had to contribute with after-tax money. His paycheck felt smaller, and there was no employer bonus waiting for him. If you judged only by the first year, Jake seemed to be winning by a mile. Jake contributed 10% of his salary, or $7,500 each year. His employer matched 4%, adding another $3,000 annually. That meant $10,500 entered his retirement account every year before any market growth even happened. On top of that, because the money went in pre-tax, Jake saved roughly $1,650 in federal taxes upfront. It felt like a perfect system. He was investing more money than Marcus, paying less tax today, and receiving extra contributions from his company. Every statement he opened confirmed the same story. His account was climbing quickly. Friends congratulated him for being disciplined. Co-workers copied his strategy. Jake believed he had solved retirement decades ahead of schedule. Marcus made a very different choice. Instead of chasing the larger balance, he focused on future flexibility. He placed the annual maximum into a Roth IRA. Because Roth contributions are made with money already taxed, he had to earn more first just to invest the same amount. His take-home pay was lower than Jake's. He did not get an employer match, and in the early years his account value looked much smaller. To outside observers, Marcus appeared to be sacrificing more while receiving less. But Marcus understood something many investors ignore. The balance you see is not always the money you keep. A large account with hidden taxes attached can be less valuable than a smaller account you fully own. For years, Jake's strategy looked unbeatable. His 401k statements grew rapidly through market gains and continuous contributions. By his mid-40s, the account had become one of his proudest achievements. Yet what Jake rarely considered was that none of the money had ever been taxed. Every contribution, every employer match, every dollar of growth still carried a future claim from the government. His retirement account was not entirely his. It was partially shared with the IRS, and the percentage of ownership depended on whatever tax brackets existed when he finally needed the money. That hidden tax bill becomes real the moment withdrawals begin. In retirement, money taken from a traditional 401k is taxed as ordinary income. It does not matter that Jake spent decades building it. It does not matter that some gains came from long-term compounding. When withdrawals start, the government treats those dollars like a paycheck. If Jake withdraws $60,000 in retirement, that amount may increase his taxable income and reduce what he actually keeps. The account statement may show 6 or 7 figures, but after taxes, the spendable amount is smaller than many retirees expect. Then came another surprise many workers never plan for: required minimum distributions. Once Jake reached the required age under current rules, he could be forced to begin withdrawing money, whether he needed it or not. Even if he had other income sources, even if the market was down, even if he wanted the account to keep compounding untouched, mandatory distributions could create taxable income. A person who saved responsibly for decades can be pushed into larger tax bills simply because the account became too successful. The bigger Jake's balance grew, the more serious this issue became. Taxes can affect more than the 401k itself. Additional retirement income can also change how other benefits are taxed. Many retirees are surprised to learn that Social Security can become partially taxable depending on total income. That means Jake's withdrawals might trigger taxes not only on his 401k money, but also on benefits he expected to receive cleanly. A decision made at age 30 could create ripple effects at age 70. The account that once looked efficient during working years could become expensive during retirement. There was another risk hiding in plain sight: emergencies before retirement age. Life does not always wait for financial plans. Imagine Jake at age 45 facing a medical issue, job loss, or family crisis. If he needed $30,000 quickly and had to tap his 401k, he could face income taxes plus early withdrawal penalties depending on circumstances and rules at that time. A large chunk of the money might disappear before it even reached his bank account. The account designed to provide security could become costly when security was needed most. Marcus faced a different reality entirely. His Roth IRA grew more slowly in the beginning because there was no employer match and contributions were capped to lower than a 401k. Yet every dollar inside had already settled its tax obligation. Once qualified rules were met, withdrawals in retirement could be tax-free. Growth could be tax-free. Future gains could belong fully to him. While Jake celebrated a larger gross balance, Marcus quietly built a cleaner source of wealth. This distinction matters more with time. A Roth IRA may show a smaller number for years, but that number can be more honest. If Marcus sees $500,000, he may actually control the full spending power of that amount under qualified withdrawal rules. Jake might see a higher number, but some portion belongs to future taxes. Comparing raw balances without considering taxes is like comparing houses without considering mortgages. The headline figure can mislead. Marcus also gained flexibility. In many cases, Roth IRA contribution amounts can be accessed without the same taxes and penalties that burden early traditional retirement withdrawals, subject to rules and ordering guidelines. That means his money was not trapped in the same way. He still wanted it for retirement, but if life forced a decision, he had more room to maneuver. Flexibility has value, even if it never appears on a statement. Still, the Roth path was not perfect. Marcus missed years of employer matching contributions. He also gave up immediate tax deductions Jake enjoyed annually. If those tax savings had been invested wisely elsewhere, they could have compounded into significant wealth. This is where the debate becomes more nuanced than internet headlines suggest. Neither account is universally superior. The right answer depends on income today, taxes tomorrow, discipline, and available employer benefits. By age 62, the difference became dramatic on paper. Jake's 401k, fueled by higher annual contributions, company matches, and decades of compounding, had grown into a much larger account. He looked like the clear winner. Marcus's Roth IRA was smaller because of contribution limits and no employer match. Anyone glancing only at balances would likely choose Jake's strategy instantly. But retirement is not won by account size alone. It is won by after-tax income, flexibility, and peace of mind. When both men began withdrawing $60,000 annually to live on, the scoreboard changed. Jake's withdrawals created taxable income. Depending on rates and circumstances, a meaningful portion could go to taxes each year. Marcus, assuming qualified Roth rules were met, could take the same spending amount with no federal tax on those withdrawals. Jake's larger balance now had friction. Marcus's smaller balance flowed cleanly. Over a 20 or 25-year retirement, that annual difference can become enormous. Taxes paid year after year reduce not only spending money, but also the amount left invested. Every dollar sent out is a dollar no longer compounding. That creates a second-order cost many retirees miss. The visible tax bill is only part of the damage. The invisible cost is the growth that money could have earned if it had stayed invested. So who actually made the better decision? The truth is neither extreme strategy wins consistently. Ignoring a 401k match can mean refusing free compensation. Ignoring Roth opportunities can mean building a giant taxable time bomb. The smartest investors combine both systems strategically. They use each account for what it does best. Instead of treating retirement planning like a one-team competition, financial planners often recommend starting with the employer match first. If a company offers a 4% match, contributing enough to receive it can be one of the highest guaranteed returns available. Turning down a match is often equivalent to refusing part of your salary. After capturing that benefit, many workers then prioritize Roth contributions for tax-free growth and future withdrawal flexibility. If additional money remains, they return to the 401k for higher contribution limits and further tax deferral. This blended approach creates tax diversification. In retirement, you can draw from taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free sources depending on market conditions and tax brackets. Need to keep taxable income lower 1 year? Use Roth funds. Need deductions during high-earning years? Increase traditional contributions. Flexibility in retirement often comes from having choices, not from betting everything on one account type. Decades earlier, Jake and Marcus were never really competing against each other. They were each confronting the same question every worker faces: pay taxes now or later, take free money now or preserve flexibility later, chase the biggest balance or the most usable income. The people who retire most comfortably are usually not those who guessed one account perfectly. They are the ones who built multiple options. The lesson is simple but powerful. A retirement statement can lie by omission. A 7-figure balance may include future tax obligations. A smaller Roth balance may represent cleaner spending power. Free employer matches matter. Tax-free growth matters. Contribution limits matter. Access rules matter. The winner is rarely chosen by slogans like 401k is best or Roth is best. The winner is chosen by strategy. If you are early in your career, the decision you make this year may echo 4 decades. If you are mid-career, there is still time to diversify future contributions. If you are near retirement, understanding how taxes affect withdrawals may be just as important as investment returns. Money grows through compounding, but wealth lasts through planning. In the end, Jake built a large machine that required future tax payments to run. Marcus built a smaller machine that produced cleaner cash flow. The smartest path would have taken the strongest parts of both. First capture the match, then build Roth assets, then use the 401k again to increase total savings. That is how ordinary earners turn paychecks into long-term freedom. By age 62, Jake and Marcus finally reached the moment they had spent more than 3 decades preparing for. No more alarms before sunrise, no more rushing into traffic, no more living around meetings, deadlines, and monthly performance reviews. Retirement had arrived. On paper, Jake looked like the obvious champion. His 401k, built through larger annual contributions, company matching, and years of market growth, had reached well over $1 million. Friends admired the number. Family members called him a genius. He had become what many people dream of becoming: a paper millionaire. Marcus, meanwhile, had a smaller Roth IRA balance. To outsiders, it seemed clear who had won the race. But retirement is not won on paper. It is won in real life. The first month of retirement exposed a difference immediately. Both men planned to withdraw $60,000 per year to cover housing, travel, healthcare, food, and the freedom they had worked so long to enjoy. Jake logged into his 401k, requested his distribution, and felt proud as the transfer began. Then taxes entered the picture. Because traditional 401k withdrawals are generally taxed as ordinary income, a portion of every dollar he withdrew no longer belonged to him. The account balance was large, but access came with friction. Marcus withdrew the same amount from his Roth IRA under qualified rules and kept the full spending amount tax-free. In 1 month, the battle shifted from account size to usable income. Jake had spent years celebrating the total number in his account. What he had not fully appreciated was that gross wealth and net wealth are different things. A retirement account showing $1.2 million can feel larger than a Roth showing $900,000. But if one account creates taxes on every withdrawal, while the other does not, the practical gap narrows quickly. Retirement is not about how much sits on a statement. It is about how much reaches your hands after taxes, fees, and required distributions. At first, Jake told himself the tax hit was manageable. It was only part of the plan. But then he noticed something else. Every year he withdrew funds. Those withdrawals increased taxable income, depending on other income sources that could also influence how much of his Social Security became taxable. The same money was affecting multiple parts of his financial life. He had worked for decades to become financially free, yet taxes still shaped how much he could safely spend. Marcus faced a very different emotional reality. His Roth withdrawals felt clean. There was no anxiety over withholding percentages, estimated taxes, or whether taking an extra vacation would push income into a higher bracket. He knew what he could spend, because the money arrived as usable money. That certainty created peace of mind that never appears in spreadsheets. Financial stress is not only about having too little money. Sometimes it comes from not knowing how much of your own money you are actually allowed to use. As retirement continued, healthcare costs began rising. Insurance premiums increased. Unexpected prescriptions appeared. Small medical expenses became regular expenses. Jake had to think carefully before taking larger withdrawals, because each extra dollar could create more taxable income. Marcus could often access additional Roth funds without triggering the same federal tax consequences on qualified withdrawals. The difference was not just mathematical, it was behavioral. Jake hesitated. Marcus adapted. Then came market volatility. A downturn hit during their retirement years, reducing portfolio values. This is where many retirees face sequence of returns risk. Withdrawing during market declines can permanently damage long-term sustainability. Jake still needed income, but pulling more money from his 401k during a downturn could mean selling depressed investments, while also generating taxable withdrawals. Marcus also felt the pain of falling markets, but having tax-free withdrawal options gave him another layer of control. Tax flexibility can become investment flexibility. Some years Jake wanted to withdraw less, but then another rule entered the story: required minimum distributions. Once he reached the applicable age under current law, the government could require withdrawals, whether he needed them or not, even if he preferred to leave the money invested. Even if he had enough cash elsewhere, mandatory distributions could force taxable income. Success had created a new problem. The more he accumulated, the more likely forced withdrawals became meaningful. Marcus did not face the same traditional 401k style pressure inside his Roth IRA structure under then current rules for original owners. That meant he could choose when and how much to withdraw based on his life, not based solely on government formulas. Freedom in retirement often means optionality. Optionality is the power to choose timing, amount, and tax impact. Over 10 years, the pattern became clear. Jake's larger account balance had given him an advantage in accumulation, but Marcus's tax-free withdrawals created an advantage in distribution. This is why so many workers misunderstand retirement planning. They optimize for the saving years while ignoring the spending years. Yet retirement is not just about building assets. It is about converting assets into reliable lifestyle support. Jake began reviewing his earlier choices with more nuance. He realized the employer match had absolutely been valuable. Those free contributions had compounded for decades and materially increased his wealth. Turning that down would have been costly. But he also realized putting every extra dollar into the traditional 401k had concentrated future tax risk. He had built one giant bucket with one giant rule set. Marcus also saw the limits of his path. Without employer matching money, his account had grown slower. Some years he wished he had captured more of the guaranteed compensation available through workplace benefits. His Roth gave flexibility, but he might have reached an even stronger position with a blended strategy. He had built a clean bucket, but perhaps not a large enough one. That realization matters because most financial mistakes come from all or nothing thinking. People ask whether a 401k is better than a Roth IRA, as if one account must defeat the other. In reality, the most resilient plans usually combine both. One account can reduce taxes during working years. Another can reduce taxes during retirement years. One can maximize employer benefits. Another can maximize flexibility. Strength comes from diversity. Imagine if Jake had contributed enough to earn the full employer match, then redirected additional savings into a Roth IRA every year. He still would have captured free money and upfront tax benefits, but he also would have built a growing pool of tax-free assets. In retirement, he could choose whether to withdraw from the 401k or the Roth depending on tax brackets, healthcare subsidies, market conditions, or legacy goals. That kind of control can save substantial money over decades. Imagine if Marcus had first taken the employer match before maxing his Roth IRA. He would have received guaranteed extra contributions while still building tax-free wealth. Instead of choosing between growth and flexibility, he could have owned both. This is often the real lesson behind retirement strategy. Sequence matters. The order of contributions can be just as important as the account type. Many planners recommend a three-step framework. First, contribute enough to a workplace plan to receive the full employer match. That match is often one of the highest low-risk returns available because it is part of total compensation. Second, prioritize Roth contributions if eligible, especially when current income is moderate or future tax rates may be higher. Third, if additional money remains, return to the 401k for larger contribution limits and continued tax deferral. This creates tax diversification across your future retirement income. Tax diversification is one of the most underrated ideas in personal finance. If all retirement money sits in tax-deferred accounts, future tax law changes can affect everything. If all money sits in taxable brokerage accounts, yearly taxes on dividends and gains may matter. If all money sits in Roth structures, contribution capacity may have been limited during peak earning years. But if money is spread across multiple tax treatments, you gain flexibility to respond as life changes. By age 75, Jake and Marcus both understood something their younger selves did not. Investment returns matter, but strategy determines how much of those returns you keep. Saving consistently matters, but withdrawal planning matters too. Employer matches matter, but tax-free income streams can matter just as much later. Wealth is not just accumulation. Wealth is usable freedom over time. Their conversations changed. In their 30s, they compared balances. In their 70s, they compared stress levels. Jake sometimes worried about taxes, future rule changes, and required withdrawals. Marcus worried less about taxes, but occasionally wished he had accumulated more through workplace matching. Each had something the other valued. Each had learned the same lesson from opposite sides. For younger workers watching from the beginning of their own careers, this story carries a clear warning. Do not mistake a bigger balance for a better plan. Do not ignore free employer money. Do not underestimate future taxes. Do not assume your tax bracket in retirement will automatically be lower. Do not build only one type of account if you have access to multiple tools. For mid-career earners, the lesson is hopeful. You do not need to undo the past perfectly. You can start diversifying now. Future contributions can be split intelligently. Traditional accounts can still help reduce current taxes. Roth accounts can still build future tax-free income. The best time to optimize may have been years ago, but the second best time is the next contribution. For retirees, the lesson is practical. Withdrawal order, tax brackets, social security timing, healthcare costs, and required distributions can significantly affect longevity of savings. To people with identical balances can experience very different retirements, depending on how income is structured. Planning does not end when work ends. In the end, Jake was never foolish for using a 401k, and Marcus was never foolish for choosing a Roth IRA. Each used a legitimate tool. The mistake would be believing one tool solves every stage of life. A hammer is excellent for nails, but terrible for screws. Financial accounts work the same way. Use the right tool for the right job. The smartest retirement strategy often less dramatic than internet debates. It is not flashy. It does not promise instant millions. It simply combines advantages where they exist. Capture the employer match. Build Roth flexibility. Use higher contribution limits when possible. Reassess as income rises and tax laws evolve. Repeat consistently for decades. Jake and Marcus both retired, Both built meaningful wealth, but the most powerful version of their future would have blended the strengths of both journeys. That is the real secret most people learn too late. You do not need to choose one side of the battle. You need to build a system where both sides work for you.